Hello everyone. In today's session, we are going to talk about the sequence diagram, and this is the fourth UML diagram that we are going to discuss. The first we discussed about the use case, then object, and the class diagram, and today it's a sequence diagram. So let's understand that what is sequence diagram and how to draw it, and what is the advantage of this. So very first is what is sequence diagram. As name suggests, sequence means when you are performing any task, any process, any job, how many different steps, how many steps which you need to perform, and that is two in the sequence, and that we call the sequence diagram. So we can take any scenario, we can take any process, we can consider any task, and we can say that okay, first step is, then step 2, step 3. So that is the sequence, like first this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen, and finally I'll get the result. So sequence diagram is basically nothing but the interactions, basically we use it to display, to showcase the interactions of what? Interactions of objects. This object can be anything, like it can be your hardware, it can be your software, it can be your user, it can be the another system. Object can be anything. So how all the objects interact with each other, and that is two in arranged in particular time sequence. So how they are arranged, and what is the time sequence for that. Time sequence means what? That if I say that this is my first object, this is the second object, and this is the third object, right? So when I'm starting from this location, so let's say I'm taking the 5 minutes, right, to work here, then I go here, then it takes 2 minutes, right, then I go here, and finally I'll get the output. So this is called the sequence. You cannot say that first this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen. No, this process requires certain steps, certain sequence, and that is two in the timeline, right? So this thing we can easily showcase in the sequence diagram. The second point says the sequence diagrams describe interactions. As I said, object interactions. The second is also the same, ultimately interactions. Interactions between what? As I said, object interactions, right? So here we have mentioned the word classes. Just to make it more clear, classes means that can be your GUI class, that can be your database class, that can be your user class, that is entity class, anything. So how all the things interact with each other to make or to execute one particular operation, right? So that we can show through the sequence diagram. So sequence diagram describe interaction among classes in terms of an exchange of messages over time. Yeah, definitely. Exchange of messages means what? Means like if one user is interacting with the system, in that system is ultimately the combination of hardware and software, right? So how that particular one entity interact or send some message to the system, how that system interact internally, how that system send the message to the external entity, how it comes back, what are the different types of messages it gives, right? But we need to mention the time, like how much time it takes. That is equally important factor. And this is all about the sequence diagram. Sometimes we call sequence diagram as an event diagram, because through this diagram we can describe our whole event along with all the types of interactions, exchange of messages, time, and everything we can show in this diagram. And the final point is a sequence diagram is a good way to visualize and validate various runtime scenarios. Definitely, it becomes very easy to visualize that how actually things will be will happen in real, right? We can easily visualize this thing through the sequence diagram, and also we can validate certain points, certain scenarios, like really is it possible to do, or do we need to validate this thing. So all the things we can easily understand through the sequence diagram. So this is just an introduction of the sequence diagram. We will discuss about its elements and the example as well. So this is just an introduction of the sequence diagram.